Hey, so in this video, I'm going to talk about how to scale a coaching or consulting business to $100,000 per month. And I'm going to walk you through the units that you need to have in place in order to do that. And also going to talk about all the bottlenecks and constraints you might experience while trying to unlock the next level when you are scaling your coaching business or consulting business. So first of all, I'm going to talk about cold traffic. And something that you have to know about cold traffic, it's been getting significantly harder to get that right. Why? Because trust is at an all-time low, right? People are extremely skeptical. Your potential prospects could have been burned before, right? And for that reason, they are going to be less likely to respond to your average message or your average ad or your average cold call, whichever way you're doing it. Because obviously the coaching and consulting space is so big, there are multiple ways. There's no cookie cutter method for scaling your business. It's going to be different from business to business. And what I have to say in terms of getting the eyeballs necessary, right? The attention necessary to book your appointments, right? Because that's going to be the next step. So you have to be authentic, right? You have to show your true personality, right? If you don't do that, if you're going to start copying people left, right, and center, it's not going to pan out, right? And then on top of that, you also have to be very creative and thoughtful about what you're putting out there. Let me tell you why. So for example, with Facebook ads in particular, and if you don't know, and this is probably maybe like the first video you've ever watched on this channel, I spend almost $8 million on Facebook ads. So just for you to know that I have some level of authority to talk about this. So a lot of talking head style videos stopped working fairly recently because many prospects started to associate those style of ads with just purely scamming. It's hard to say it, but that's how people feel, right? And because it's so easy nowadays to record in your car, to record anywhere, people start to associate less professional talking head style content with perhaps people who are, and I am sure there are a lot of stories out there that I'm not aware of, right? But this is the trend. So if you ever try to run ads or thought about running ads, images are a significantly easier way to start. And images are also much cheaper because you are going to pay less for them on the auction, right? So it's definitely something to consider. Plus, you can convey a lot of information in image format, and it takes away, it's going to be more difficult to associate anything with the message if it's really about helping the prospects, right? Because there's no face, there's no tonality. It's, hey, I can help you with this. I can help you lose weight. Are you interested in this? And then obviously if the answer is yes, that could actually push them onto your landing page or wherever you're sending your traffic, right? And here's another really interesting thing we noticed recently. So with video ads in particular, what some people started doing is actually hiring UGC models, female models, and those ads seem to be working. Very interesting, right? So again, something to take into consideration. So if your talking head style ads are not working, and if you have the budget to perhaps invest in, a couple of UGC creators who can help you out with video ad creation, that could possibly be a path forward. And there's a couple of other things I wanted to talk about before we move forward. And those are, so I just wanted to sort of highlight that I structured lead generation and appointments in this fashion. And the reason why I did that is a lot of times what you're going to see is if your ads are working, or if you're, whatever you're doing, right? Because maybe you're going to do LinkedIn, right? If you're an executive coach or consultant. So sometimes, depending on your business, you might want to start with lead generation, right? Because if you're selling a higher ticket item and people need to do more research on what you do, and you are aware that there's a longer sales cycle, then it might be a good idea to ask for their name and email, phone number first. So maybe you're going to send them a white paper or a case study or, a meal plan. So it really depends on your business, not even the niche, the business, right? Because I have seen businesses where there's no lead generation at all. One of our most recent clients, a fitness coach, we did not do lead generation at all because it was actually very counterintuitive to how the business that opened up the doors to very low quality traffic in his case, right? Because he was doing multidisciplinary coaching. So yeah, sure, the fitness was the big thing, but he also did marriage coaching and he also did mindset coaching. So because of that, it was very difficult for us to come up with any type of lead magnet that could really speak to the avatar, because there was just so much to what we were doing, right? So in their case, there was no lead generation at all. I would argue that the lead generation happened on Instagram, right? Because that was really, we didn't even have retargeting, right? Because Instagram was doing that job, right? And then, cool, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that, sometimes lead generation has to come before appointments, right? And there are going to be cases when the lead generation has to be, it's more like an option, right? And perhaps you want to drive traffic to some type of a page where you're setting appointments already. Again, depending on your average sales cycle and how much information someone needs to consume before they buy. And again, obviously, the more assets you have, the better it is, because again, everyone does this completely differently, right? Cool. So appointments. Again, setting appointments, there's so many ways to do it, right? Some people do cold calling. Some people use SMS. There's LinkedIn. There's organic strategies. There's ads, both Facebook and YouTube ads. So there are a lot of ways to set appointments. The way you need to generate your appointments is based on where your prospects are, right? So if you're an executive coach, it is more than likely that your cold traffic might come from LinkedIn, right? Because that's going to be your bread and butter, right? Or if you're a fitness coach, obviously LinkedIn is not going to make sense unless you're helping entrepreneurs. But then again, when you're on LinkedIn, you don't really think about fitness, right? So you got to be aware of where your customers are. And then once you know where they are, it's going to be significantly easier to decide. So keep that in mind. But then again, once you know where your prospects are, where your potential customers are, then you got to make sure that you select the right appointment setting strategy for your business. And again, it's going to be different from business to business, right? Some people use organic and it works for them completely fine, and they're making a lot of money off of it, right? Maybe it's TikTok for you, maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's Facebook. It really depends on what you have in place, right? And but overall, we have identified three avatars, right? And those are the executive, the motivator, and the teacher, right? And here are the main differences. So obviously the executive is your, the executive coach, or you help C-level executives with whatever you're specialized in. And obviously, because in some cases your ticket price is going to be higher than $20,000. Again, it depends, but I have seen coaching and consulting offers where the ticket price was around that point. You're not going to be able to run any Facebook ads to that, right? Because it's way too expensive, and most people are not going to buy a $20,000 package after the first interaction with you from Facebook or Instagram, for that matter. So obviously you need a completely different strategy in place. And on LinkedIn, obviously people are going to be more inclined to spend more money if you can actually prove that you are, what you do, you provided enough evidence that backs up your claims, right? It's a very different game. Whereas if you are a motivator, right? And that's just the name we came up for it, right? It might change in the future. Usually those types of people are, you're intense, you are killing it on sales calls, you are one call closing left, right, and center, right? And you have no issues around, showing up, like making content, and you're very active, for example, on Instagram. Usually in those cases, we have seen direct to offer funnels working the best, just purely because those types of coaches' charisma can really carry things forward. And if your coaching is more along the lines of, it's not very technical, right? Then it could make more sense. But again, it really depends on how you run your business, what your offer is. And then the teacher. And what we have seen is we're not saying that teachers cannot sell, right? But when you're passing on a lot of technical knowledge, maybe around numbers, it is going to be more difficult to, just give your prospects everything up front. So what we've seen there is communities work probably the best, right? And with those types of communities, again, it will really depend on like what you do and demographic. You can build communities on Discord, you can build communities on School, you can build communities on Facebook. Depending on your demographic, that will really determine where you're going to do that. Depending on, and again, like if your prospects are native to a certain platform, obviously it's going to make the most sense to build your community there. So that's kind of like the macro view on how to figure out like how to set your appointments. So once you've figured your approach, once you have the approach in place, then you have to worry about qualification. Usually what we do at Company Growth Partner, we don't put a lot of qualification in place up front. Why? Because we want to know what kind of people you're going to get on the call. And then once you had a couple of sales calls, right, then we're going to know how to actually have the best qualification processes in place in order to filter for the people who might not have the funds to invest in your offer, or they might not meet certain qualifications. Obviously, it really helps if you're able to provide that information up front. But in some cases, especially when maybe your offer is fairly new, you might not really know like what the main objections are, and also it can drive appointment costs up a lot, right? The average appointment cost in the coaching and consulting space is around $200, we have seen appointment costs going higher, but then again, it's the game of can you afford it, right? Like if your ticket price and your customer lifetime value is high enough, obviously maybe in some cases you can let the appointment cost go up to $500 to $600, but then again, you need to have the budget to invest in advertising in order to sustain a $500 cost per appointment, right? Because in some cases you might be able to downsell, right, on sales calls and maybe sell them something else, right? Like that happens, or you're sending them, you're putting some people through some type of a nurture sequence or a low ticket offer, right? Like there are many ways to do that, but you need to have a qualification process in place, because obviously if you want to scale up to $100,000 per month, you need to generate a lot of calls. And you also want to make sure you're not going to waste time on calls where, obviously not the right people are showing up. And then the next part is a reminder sequence. And again, it really depends from industry to industry, but most people, it doesn't matter what, everyone comes up like you're never going to name your sales call. Sales call is going to be discovery call or strategy call or audit call or whatever, right? On those calls, obviously, you need to have some type of a process in place in order to make sure that people show up, right? Because some people are not going to show up. And there are multiple ways to do that. I'd say that depending on how you run your business, it's going to be different. I know that I say that a lot, but there are multiple approaches, right? Something that Alex Hormozi recommends all the time is a 3-way text sequence, right? Or a 3-way text setup where your setter introduces the prospect to you, right? And then you guys build rapport via text. But then again, maybe if you're an executive coach, that might not make the most sense if that's not how you run your business, right? So there are multiple ways to do that, but you have to be prepared for lower show rates. We've seen that happening a lot, right? And you got to figure that out. Fortunately, we have some proven methods in place to increase show rate. But again, you have to choose from a library of approaches in order to find the best for your business in particular. And then obviously, once you have your sales call, that's amazing. But then again, there are a lot of things that can fall apart on sales calls, right? Do you normally do a one-call close? Do you need to have a set call before the one-call close? So like, everyone does it differently, right? Maybe you just have like the one call and then you close on that call, or maybe you do a setting call before, right? It really depends. The thing that can obviously, the bottleneck there is close rate, right? Because once people are actually showing up on the call, you need to close them. But then, are you going to have, if the wrong people are showing up on the call, and that can happen too, right? So maybe your offer rate is low, and so if your offer rate is low and they're saying, well, I don't have any money at all, right? And you keep having those types of people showing up on the calls, then obviously you need to make some changes to the qualification process in order to ensure that you filter, that you're not wasting your time on people who cannot give you money, right? Or maybe something has to be changed, like maybe the targeting is off, right? The offer rate is going to be the best indicator of that. But obviously, at the same time, you need to ensure that you have high close rates too, right? And I don't know, obviously, I don't really know who's watching the video, yeah? If you have a close rate KPI of like 20%, you might have to think twice about maybe you have to change it, because I firmly believe that if your offer is good and you can actually help people, then you should be able to set at a higher percentage. Again, there are some exceptions, right? Like if you have a really high ticket offer, maybe you sell something for like 20K, maybe your close rate is going to be lower. But if your ticket price is below $10,000, then obviously in those cases, you should be able to, especially with a mid-ticket price, maybe like a I don't know, 4,700 to 7,800 or 8,000, you should be able to have a higher close rate than 20%. So that's basically the overall philosophy, and these are all the things you need to have in place in order to scale your coaching business to $100,000 per month, right? And again, I'm just telling you all this because we've already done this before with the fitness coach we helped. The business's name is Superhuman Fathers. We helped, and the founder is Kyle, and we helped Kyle scale his business up to $200,000 per month, and then to $300,000 per month, right? And before we started scaling, we already had all these things in place when we started to hit $100,000, right? Now, once you start hitting $100,000, obviously this is going to look significantly more complex on the revenue operations side, right? It's going to look significantly more complex because you're going to have more systems in place. You're going to need more automation. Maybe past $100,000, maybe you are going to start considering adding an additional offer, back-end offer of some sort, right? So it's going to get even more complicated, and that's why you need to get this right from the get-go. Cool. So I hope you like this. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please click or like this video, comment down below, share it with any of your coaching, if you know anyone in the coaching and consulting space, and also subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much.